It's Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance, and you may remember recently Dianne McKay was on our show. She is a trustee with the Ventura County Community College District, and after the show she told us about a book that she co-curated with her partner, her business partner, Scott Harris, and when she told me the title I said, you both have to come on, because I love this kind of stuff. The book is called When 101 Ventura County Leaders Go Back in Time to Their 21st Birthday. So these are 50-somethings that are giving their 21-year-old selves advice. How'd you think of this, Diane?
Well, we had a customer, Keith Sotheby, the president of Work Right Uniform Company in Oxnard, and he was interviewed for a magazine, a feature, and the final question they asked him was, what advice would he give to someone just starting out in their career? And the advice he gave was great, and so I thought, God, we should do something with this. I went into Scott's office. I thought we could, interview other customers and do something. And
you work in marketing with Scott.
Right, and so, but Scott writes, and so 15 minutes later, we were doing a book instead.
And let's talk about this, because like Diane had said, you have a long history as a writer, author, so kind of creating this into book form was a natural for you.
It wasn't natural, and it was fantastic. It was one of the most enjoyable projects I've ever worked on, because we got to work. Probably half the people in the book are good friends of Diane and I's, so they were easy people to ask, and we're happy to do it. But even with those that we thought we knew well, we learned quite a bit as we read their responses.
If you can say, were there certain themes that were perpetuated throughout the book? Were some folks more kind of philosophical, some more comedic, some more offering sage advice?
It was a lot of all of those things. When you have 100 different pieces of advice, there was advice that some might think is conflicting. Some said, say yes more often, and someone else said, don't say yes when you mean no. We had what we said in the foreword is almost nobody said spend more time at the office.
Yes. No, indeed. I want to talk about some of the folks that are in this book. All 100 are incredibly important and offer wisdom that we should all take in. But let's talk about Larry Jans. And we'll go back and forth if that's okay with you. Tell me about Larry.
Well, Larry's a founding family of the Conejo Valley. His family is well known there. There's Jans Road, the Jans Mall. He is Larry Jans. And but he, his first quip back was, I'm sure I can come up with some advice I would have ignored when I was 21.
Right.
But then he waxed philosophical about it, with some really succinct advice.
Let's talk about another person that was key in this project, Scott. His name is Keith Sotheby. Tell us about him.
Well, as Diana mentioned, Keith is a client of ours and a brilliant man. And
is he the one you mentioned early on? Tell us more, though.
Well, and when he gave his responses, what happened was Diane and I were really touched by the responses he gave. The answer to the question, what advice would you give? It was very thoughtful advice. And initially what we thought is we need to get this to our kids. Each of us get this to our kids. And then we thought, well, what about other kids? And then that's what turned into the book, is that idea that there is a lot of collective wisdom out there among people that have been around the block a couple of times. And we're blessed to have a lot of friends in the community, and people wanted to participate. And we made new friends. I would say a third to a half of the book are people that Diane and I did not know before we started the project. But over the year that we worked on this, we would see names in the newspaper about somebody who's running a heroin clinic in Simi Valley, or a teacher of a year that you otherwise might not have heard of, but has amazing advice and counsel to give to young people. So collectively, it just wound up being something that initially designed for younger people, but now it absolutely works for any age.
Tell us about two men. I guess they took a more humorous approach. Is that right? David Marin and Mike Powers?
Well, they both had some serious things. I mean, Mike talked about, falling in love and finding the right person, and then having children and the ridiculous love that comes with that. And I think any of us that have kids can relate. Doubt. But then he's the only one who said, and the Powerball numbers are, which was just fun. And David Marin, same thing. He gave some good advice, but then he said, there's going to be this odd little company called Google buy stocks.
And it takes me back to the film Back to the Future, where they had, I think, the lottery numbers, the World Series winners or whatever.
Yeah, they had the sports almanac.
The sports almanac. Yes. The book just came out, yet we've already lost someone. who
Yes.
offers sage advice. Do you want to talk? I can tell that it's touching to you, so
Well,
why don't you go
Frances
there?
was a friend of mine. She was someone
Who is Frances?
Frances Prince was the first female city council person and mayor in Thousand Oaks, and she was a champion for the environment, fought hard for the open space, and was a founder of COSCA, the Caneo Open Space Group. And as I've watched over the emails since she passed, just the respect that she had from people who were on the council with her, people who she was a mentor to, like me. I was lucky enough to see her and have her sign her page in our books for us.
Was she older? Or?
Yeah, she was 79, so not
not that old.
No,
Right.
but for
No longer old.
Right, I was
No.
going to say.
And the accomplishments that she, in the accomplishment category, she would be considered old because she accomplished so incredibly much.
I want to turn back to you, Scott, and talk about some of the folks that are in the public safety space, because you talked to a few of them.
We did.
You talked to Jerry Williams, Jeff Dean, and Mike Bradbury. Tell us about Jerry Williams to start.
Well, Jerry's a dear friend. She was a police chief in the city of Oxnard. She was also for about 6 months the fire chief. But she left recently and went back to Phoenix, where she is the police chief for the city of Phoenix.
Quite a
which
promotion.
It's an extraordinary thing.
Right.
She's a leader in her community, both because she's black and because she's a woman and because she's brilliant.
Right.
But
Troika.
she is an inspiration to a lot of people, which is what we were looking for in the book. So one of the things that we're hoping is that if you're a young person, you can go through that book and you'll be able to find yourself in that book.
Right.
Whether you want to work in nonprofits or law enforcement or business.
What did Jerry say? Do you remember? What was her sage advice?
Do you remember her
I
exact
actually
quote?
can't remember her exact quote. Someone's got, well, we would have to
Yeah,
look it
it's
up,
all
but
good.
it was great.
Yeah.
That's all such good advice. It kind of blends together for us.
Tell us about Jeff Dean. He currently is a Ventura County Sheriff, is that right?
He is.
Yeah,
He
elected
is.
sheriff.
He is the elected sheriff, and Jeff is a fascinating guy. Jeff is one of those who struggled a little bit coming up with this.
Interesting.
There were certain people in the book who we invited. They said yes, and a day or two later we'd get their 100 words or their bullet points.
Right.
And there were others who really struggled with it because, the truth is, I think they knew it was important. I think that Jeff knows, and others knew, in their position, people are going to look at what they say, and they're going to put a lot of stock in it. And so you try to find a balance between being humorous and sincere and being hip and yet being, and having something to say. And it was interesting to watch the way that different people went through and did.
And the last person I want to mention, at least for these purposes, is Mike Bradbury. We know him well. He's the former DA of Ventura County.
24 years, I believe.
But he provides a link. So tell us about Mike and the link he provides.
Well, he does. Mike has been a friend for a number of years. And actually, the man who replaced Mike, Greg Totten, is in the book as well.
Okay, good.
And Greg is a deeply religious individual. So he's one of the few in the book who touched on religion. Others either didn't or were concerned about doing so, but Greg put it right up front, which is Greg. If you know him at all, that is him. He leads with that. But what's fascinating about Mike is Mike had children later in life. Mike is turning 75 in February and has led an amazing life, a lot like Frances. I mean, the list of things Mike has done, accomplished, and been a part of is remarkable. But he's got a young son, Michael, who's 20. And Michael is going to be in the new book we're doing. Diane and I are doing a mirror image of this book where we're talking to young people aged 17 to 20 and having them give advice to their 60-year-old self.
I love it.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be great.
We've gotten in about 10 or 12 so far, mostly from people we know or children of people we know, and a couple of them have actually brought both of us to tears. I actually think the advice is better.
Right, and all kind of levels of future success that can be predicted. Some that may be in jail, some that may be on their way to Harvard.
Right.
We'll
That's
talk
our
more
plan.
when you come back. Dianne McKay, Scott Harris, they are the authors of this book. My name is Brad Pomerance. Thank you so much for joining us on Local Edition.